Good morning and welcome to PPI Group's webinar. Very pleased to have you with us. We're going to go ahead and get started. Before we do that, my name is Wendy Finch. I'm the Marketing Director here at the PPI Group, and I'm very pleased to have with us today Glen Hines, and I'll introduce Glen here in just a moment. He's our guest speaker. But before we do that, I want to go over just a couple of housekeeping items. We are planning to have some time at the end for a Q&A. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, please type them in the question box on your GoToWebinar toolbar there, and we will address those at the end during the Q&A and get Glen's feedback. So also on the call or on the webinar with us is PPI Group's Sales Director, Jesse Thompson. So we might get him to chime in a little bit at the end here during that Q&A. So if you have questions for Jesse or Glen throughout the presentation, again, just type those questions in there and we'll get those addressed at the end as time allows. We do have a hard 11 o'clock stop time, so we will be moving things right along. One other thing is I want to let everybody know the webinar is being recorded and will be posted up on our website by end of day, and you'll also receive an email notification that gives you the link, so if you want to be able to share that with colleagues who maybe weren't able to attend or just revisit some of the information yourself, it'll be made available to you. So without any further delays from me, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Glen. At the end of the webinar, we'll make sure to give you some email information and contact information, but if for some reason you have to leave before that or you don't catch it, when you receive those automated emails from the GoToWebinar platform, replying will come directly to me and I'll make sure it gets to the appropriate person for an answer or a response. So again, very pleased to have Glen Hines as our guest speaker today. Glen is from McMillan Pazdan Smith Architecture, and he is going to present to us a true been there, done that perspective on Revit for collaboration and what the project has done with his organization and his involvement with that. So Glen, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you. Welcome, and thanks for being on our webinar today.
Thank you, Wendy. I also want to take a moment to thank Jesse for giving me this opportunity to speak to all of you. Jesse and I kind of go way back quite a few years. Jesse used to be my provider and reseller and all that, so I know Jesse quite well. Ran into Jesse at AU a couple AUs ago, and then this past AU, he really started to pick my brain of how my firm that I work for rolled into collaboration for Revit. One of the reasons why we are kind of getting some of the attention we are when it comes to C4R is not that we're using C4R probably any different than anybody else. I mean, it is a process that has allowed us to gain tremendous amounts of benefits. But what has kind of caught people's attention and so on about our firm is that we currently own 190 licenses of C4R, and every single one of our users are on C4R. We push every one of our projects to the cloud. We are about 160 projects on the cloud with about $1.5 billion in construction costs on the cloud. So we'll get into the meat of it in a little bit, but a little bit about myself. I am an associate here at McMillan Pazdan Smith. My true title is I am the BIM and Technical Operations Manager. I basically oversee just the day-to-day operations of how we do everything on the floor when it comes to design, criteria, standards, just regular BIM Revit supports, all the way to deciding and training and doing all of that around software that we currently use. We are an Autodesk firm, so we rely heavily on our Autodesk products. I'm an old Autodesk guy. I've been in this industry for well over 20 years. Started on the board, working my way through AutoCAD, up into Revit. Worked with many resellers, kind of on the West Coast versus East Coast. Again, that's kind of how I know Jesse. So I've been born and raised in Autodesk products, and I have worked on other software packages, but not to the extent that I have with an Autodesk product. So I have my shared feelings about Autodesk at times, just probably as much as anybody else does, or whatever. But if done correctly, and I think if it's a lot of strategic planning and thinking it through, any software package that you use, whether it's an Autodesk or anything else, would really benefit each and every single one of you at your firms. Again, we are an Autodesk firm, so we rely heavily on them. So we turn to and we trust Autodesk with everything that they're giving us. Kind of going back to what I was talking about in regards to us having 190 licenses, I want to kind of share our history of that. We are a firm that we believe heavily in communication and the way we collaborate. I define those clearly two different things. I think in order for us to be very successful, internally as well as externally with our consultants or contractors or anybody on board, we have to learn how to communicate. And then on top of that, we also have to learn to collaborate. They're two very different things. Working in C4R has clearly taught us that they are two different things, and you have to be very good at both. So who is McMillan Pazdan Smith? We are a regional firm located here in the southeast of the United States. We are a studio-based architecture, planning, and interior design firm. We specialize in everything from K-12, the hospitality, to healthcare, community and corporate. We kind of do a lot of things. We'll design, a bank at a canopy drive-through, or we're doing hotel resorts or full high schools, and things like that. So we rely heavily on our consultants. We have to trust each other. And again, you can see right there through the second one there, the second paragraph, through our collaborative culture. We are a very collaborative group. It doesn't matter what project we're on, we're trying to take the same kind of approach to it every single time. So our offices are located here in the southeast. We do have 6 offices. When I came on board, we only had 5. Greenville, Spartanburg, Charleston, and Charlotte are our 4 largest. Greenville is pretty much our corporate headquarters in South Carolina. As I mentioned when I came on board, we were only at 5. Charlotte did not exist at the time. One of the tasks that was given to me when I came on board about 2.5 years ago is that our COO came to me and said, we need a better approach in bringing these locations together. How can we speed up our design process? How can we bring consultants on board? All of that. How do we make that work? And at the time, 2.5 years ago, we had very few options that we could kind of turn to. I mean, I'll show you some examples. We could all VPN to our drawings. We could do Revit server, and things like that. But there wasn't, a powerhouse of a system in place. Luckily, when I started in August of 2015, September of 2015, my provider sat and introduced me to collaboration for Revit. So, what makes McMillan Pazdan Smith operate? We are for about 260 people. 190 of those are people who are pounding the keyboard day in, day out. They are our Revit users. We are pretty much a Revit firm. We do have AutoCAD around. It's pretty much a support tool, not necessarily a design tool. If a client needs it, then we'll use it. But we build and we devote everything that we can to, pretty much anything that's in Revit. We do have Navisworks. We use Navisworks aggressively. You have the collections and building design suite packages. We'll be migrating to where we are a firm who will be rolling everything into collections. You can see every one of our users have Navisworks Simulate, so they are very techy. They're trying to get, they're trying to resolve clashes and things like that right away during the design. And we do have, Manage. With us having collections, we do use Manage especially on our super, super high profile projects. I think we all safe to say, and as we agree, that Navisworks is not, ideal for every project. It depends on what it is. Again, we're doing that canopy at that big drive-through. We're not doing Navisworks. But on our super high profile projects, our healthcare, our hospitality, our K-12, those types of big projects, we get heavily involved with all of that. So I would say that we are a pretty innovative company. We're always R&Ding, we're just researching, we're looking for anything and everything that would make us better. We are heavily invested in virtual reality. We are, I think we're always kind of on the leading edge of things that we can do. We even write our own internal programs. So here we use something like PowerBI so that we can access just our Autodesk license usage. This is web-based for us. I can get on and look at any time, what our FlexLM is doing, how we're operating at any given point in time of the day, how many licenses we have, and so on. So we're always looking for even things like that to help support us, our day in, day out, mundane activities, to help our processes just operate, just our regular operational our operational duties. We do things like that to help out. So, but all of that stuff is great. When we can write little things using Power BI or other things like that. But really, what comes to, into the meat of it all is, our design process. We work heavily to make sure that thing runs smooth. Like I said, my job is to oversee the daily operations of everything that happens on the floor. I am out of the Greenville, South Carolina office, but I operate out of all the offices. I travel to them constantly. I make sure I understand what our users are doing on the floor, how they're operating on the floor. I step in and I work on big VDC type projects. I'm one of the guys who is doing Navisworks Manage for a lot of the big high profile projects. It seems like traveling seems kind of a nuisance, but it's really actually very helpful. Our offices are close enough that most of them I can kind of travel back and forth during the day, or sometimes I spend the night. But my goal is to really understand, like I said, how we operate in every single office. Make sure we are streamlining in every single office. We share resources back and forth greatly. If Charleston is slow, people from Asheville are helping out. If Charlotte is slow, people from Atlanta are helping out. And we needed a way back then to make sure that we can make that easy. So we really wanted to figure out how we could, get better. So we look at these four base things. These are the things that we were wanting way back then. Was instantaneous feedback. I mean, if I am making some changes, I want to be able to collaborate with my consultants right away. Better communication with the design teams, sub-consultants, and clients. Same thing. If I'm working on a project and I need a column shifted 6 inches, I don't want to go through the process of calling my engineer, shifting the column, having them, shift it, save down, purge out their drawings, bundle it all up, email it to me, reload it back up, and all of that. I laugh and I say that's what we had to do back in the old days. The old days is really, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And something that we could improve clash detection, things that we could monitor immediately right away. Again, if I'm working with my consultants and they do shift that column, I want to be able to link that thing right into Navisworks right away to see if it's causing any more issues and so on. And clearly, we are an architectural firm. We are very, very mobile. We have people who travel back and forth between those office locations, job sites, jobs trailers, clients, all over the country. So we wanted something like that. So again, 2.5 years ago, this was just nothing more than kind of a pipe dream, things that we all wanted. Well, again, in August of 2015, the idea existed. I did not see it until September of 15, and like I said, that's when they introduced me to collaboration for Revit. My provider came in, and I had reached out to them and say, hey, I have these 4 goals. These are the things I want us to get better at, and I want to utilize technology in a way that we can get it. I mean, things are out there. What can we do that's better than Revit Server or something like that? So they said, we may have something for you. To kind of give you our history of that is when I went through that first seminar, I can honestly say that, I'm an old Autodesk guy, and I've been around in this industry for a long time, working in structural and working in architectural. I know the industry very well. I know construction, and I know how things should work. And I know how we communicate and all of that, from our consultants to our contractors and so on. When they introduced C4R to me, it was the second time that I've really been wowed in this industry. Meaning somebody showed me something that I did not go, that's fantastic, but that's dying on Tuesday. Or, that's really cool. Not sure if I'm going to be really using that or not. Twice has it happened to me where I said, I wish I would have had that 3 projects ago. Why is it just now coming to me, kind of a thing? The first time was when I saw Revit for the very first time, and the second time was when C4R was introduced. I had horrible flashbacks of all of these massive projects that I've worked on. I worked on everything from high-rises to sporting arenas to Intel fabrication facilities, all the way down to outhouses at campgrounds. And I just had all of these horrible flashbacks of the times that I could have really used C4R. So because I know the industry and I know, just how we operate, every firm pretty much has the same concepts. I've worked in multiple firms, in my career, and even though we may have different standards and different principles, and things like that, the concepts of way we all operate are identical. Whether you're in your firm and you draw a wall, and the way I'm in my firm and I draw a wall are no different. We use Revit identically. We all start a wall and we end a wall the same way. You may name your wall something different than what I do. Your pen weights may be different than what mine are. But again, the concepts are the same. So I immediately decided I wanted to test C4R. I went to my COO and said, I think I have a solution for everything that you just asked me to do, to tie our offices together and so on. But let me have an opportunity to test it. Most of you who work with your COOs, I'm a very dear friend of mine, and I work with him very closely every single day. I know I walk into a COO and say, I want you to dump some money on an idea. Good luck. I mean, I had to really talk to my COO over and over again to have him understand this is why I want to try it. I think it's there, but I want to learn how to break it. I want everything there is to know about C4R. Let me have 3 licenses. So when we started working through it, I got 3 licenses, and these are the things that we started considering: our Revit systems, what C4R requirements are, and costs. 2.5 years ago, there was not a lot on Google or anywhere else that I could refer to even the Autodesk Knowledge Network, or even our providers. I mean, our providers are great people, but there was a lot of times they didn't know where we were going or what we were doing with C4R. And clearly the biggest thing that they told me was, Glenn, all you need is an internet connection, whether it's Wi-Fi or you're hardwired in, and you're good to go. And you have a Revit license. Okay. So we began testing it aggressively for 90 days. We tested everything via hardwire, like you see there, and Wi-Fi connections. We tested everything in public locations everywhere that I thought our architects or myself would travel. coffee shops, restaurants, hotels, airports, job trailers, anything, even our own offices, and things like that, clients' offices. We tried at home using my phone as a hotspot in the back seat of a car when other people are driving. I'm in the back seat, and I'm trying to make it work. It worked. The thing that surprised me the most was, how well it worked. So some of the things that we had to also consider was we didn't have a project at the time. There was no project existed for McMillan Pazdan Smith, so we had to create a project. So basically, we took a project that we were doing not on the cloud, but it was being done live. It's the Wofford College, the Jerry Richardson Indoor Stadium. Jerry Richardson is the owner of the Carolina Panthers. He invested money for this beautiful, beautiful arena, and it was a very large project. So we figured, well, let's test something super large. So this is what we tested it on. I created a project, I uploaded everything up there, and this is how I began testing. And keep in mind, this was 2.5 years ago. So we began testing, what if I wanted to open up my project for the very first time? I'm on the road, I'm sitting in the Atlanta airport, and I want to open up that model. How long will it take me to open up that model? So here clearly you can see, it's time consuming in some locations. So keep in mind, these are also all Wi-Fi connections. I won't name the top name there, but you can clearly see that it took an hour to open up that model. All the way down to the bottom where between a local job trailer, home, and office location still took about 10 minutes to open up that model. Keep in mind, this is a big, beefy model. I'm on Wi-Fi. I'm in the middle of the airport opening it for the very first time. That means my model has to cache down to my machine. Then we would take a different approach. Once I had it and already cached down to my machine, let's do it again. Now let's reopen the model again without really doing any work and let it overwrite what I currently have. And you can see times drop drastically because I was no longer having to cache that machine or cache that entire model down. 5 minutes still seems like it's a long time. But like I said, again, keep in mind, I'm in the middle of an airport, when I'm testing it and so on. And then we started making, significant changes, in all of these things, caching back and forth. We're working kind of in a live effort. What happened? You can see our times jumped back up. One thing that's kind of funny is you'll notice the top one never changed. No matter what I did in that place, it would take an hour for anything to happen. So I do not ever recommend using their Wi-Fi. We even gone as far as testing it in, on some coffee shops or some locations. We went back to 2 or 3 times a day. If I'm testing it on a Wi-Fi connection and I'm testing it at 7:30 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, there's a lot of Wi-Fi traffic sitting in a coffee shop. I mean, there's tons of people in there. People are on their phones, people are on their laptops, and so on. But we would also go back and we would test it again, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Same place, same scenarios over, just to kind of see what would happen. So our best results and our recommendations after we got done testing that was, yes, it works with Wi-Fi. We could never really break the system or anything else, but clearly it works best if you're just plugged right in and you're working like straight from your offices. If we were plugged in and we were doing that from our offices, we were literally opening up that model within, 3 or 4 minutes or whatever. So, then we started going a little bit further. We started testing it with consultants. I had 3 licenses, so we lent them out to a couple of our consultants who were on that project, our structural, our mechanical people. They pushed their models up, and we just began testing, okay, they said you could shift a column, and I can see it. Can you shift your column? Well, I hear you shifted your column, but I don't see anything in there. Oh, well, that means I got to reload my model. So we had to learn how to really communicate. Just because an engineer shifts a column doesn't mean I instantly see it smooth over. I have to reload, kind of do a couple of things, and so on. So again, we started testing with our consultants and so on. And everything was working. Everything really seemed to move along. Like I said, I couldn't break it. After our 90 days, we decided we were going to go into a pilot project, and this was, around January of 2016. We happened to fall into a project where our consultants were on board. Our architects were out of Atlanta. We were partnered up with another architectural team, and we decided we were going to do this project here. This is a little library project worth about $11.9 million. Doesn't seem like it's a small project, but this is where people were located. So our architects, we were partnered up with two architects. One was in Atlanta, and McMillan Pazdan Smith was out of Greenville and Spartanburg. And these are where all of our consultants started working, or were located. So at the same time, we we started pushing all of this going through. To be honest, the first 2 weeks was a living disaster. Everything worked, and I couldn't figure out why things were not working. And it all went back to what I was talking about at the beginning of this presentation. We did not know how to collaborate, and we did not know how to communicate. The software was spot on. The software would do exactly what we wanted to do, but nobody could talk with each other. We were deleting ceilings out, light fixtures were going away, deleting walls and everything else, and we had to start adjusting to the way we operated. We had to adjust to the way we communicated, the same way and then all of that had to work with collaborating. We had to collaborate with our consultants and everybody much, much differently. That project was very successful. After our first 2 weeks of just a lot of mess, we figured it out. At the same time, it worked. It was working so great. I wanted to pilot it on a second project, something that kind of ran parallel with that at the same time. But this time, I wanted to go on the extreme end. So we decided we were going to do from a small little $11 million project to a $45 million project. And I want to do a 7-story, 150-room hotel resort that looks something very similar to that. So in this particular case, we have many models compared to the library where we only had 4. This one here, we had about 25 models total, 5 models per discipline. And we started comparing what's the difference between a small project versus a large project. And we really found, like I said, what you're doing inside Revit is really no different. When I shift a column on a small project, you're kind of done. On a large project, when I shift it, we're going round and around in the room. Rooms are changing and all of that. And that's where we really figured out. When it comes to the software pounding of the keyboard, nothing is different. It is just being able to communicate back and forth with everybody very, very differently. Everything was beginning to be very successful. So we started thinking about some of the things that we used to do. We started comparing C4R to just working over a VPN. Everybody knows if you're working over a VPN back into your office or anything else, it is brutal. I mean, it's so slow. And we were testing, and all of these things, and it was just not that great. Here's our case studies for this project. I think that's the wrong slide in there. Anyway, so the pros and cons of VPN. Clearly, we can access our project extremely, extremely slow. You all know it is brutal working that way. Working on Revit Server. Revit Server is another one that, yes, we have the ability to share and work on other projects or work on projects in other offices and locations. But, it was not great. We couldn't bring our consultants on unless we purchased something else that was added on top of that, like Clarity or things like that. The pros is we use our own licenses, kind of the basic stuff. The cons is, you got to set up servers everywhere. You got to maintain these servers, and so on. And then the other consideration is the model management. You really got to make sure models are clean. Anyway, so Revit Server was just really bogged down if models were not, spot on and clean. So where is McMillan Pazdan Smith today with C4R? As I said, we are a firm now that we went from 3 to now 190 licenses. We've learned a lot the past 2.5 years. We do anything and everything on the cloud. Everything from a small renovation for a surgical room to, like I said, full resorts, high schools, hotels, it does not matter. We push our projects to the cloud. If consultants are on board yet, great. If they're not on board yet, we still push it to the cloud. Sometimes we have projects that are on the cloud that it's just we're only doing case studies and we want access to our models from anywhere. We still push it to the cloud. So again, we went from 3 licenses to 190. There is nothing really, to be honest, that stops anybody from going to the cloud. We have gained tremendous amounts of time. The biggest question that I probably hear more than anything is that, how much time has it saved being on the cloud? Are you speeding up your projects? And the honest answer to that is yes and no. Do we gain valuable time? Yes, we gain tremendous amounts of time. That hotel resort is a very good example. For us to exchange, 25 models back and forth every Friday or however we're doing, whatever's in the scope of our project, to do that back and forth, to clean things up, relink things back, make sure everybody's reading, renaming, purging, all of that, emails sent back and forth, we figured that would take somebody a good 8 hours every Friday. That's just somebody's job is just to manage models. Because we no longer have to do that, the scope of that project was 52 weeks. We figured, okay, we're not exchanging models on a normal project. We're not exchanging models every Friday anyway, so we backed that off. That project is substantial, so we backed it off at least, a good 3 months. So we gave ourselves 40 days, or 40. We gave ourselves, 40 weeks. So you take 8 times 40, we save 320 hours of no longer having to do that, anymore. 320 hours seems like a lot, and it is tremendous amounts of time. And people often ask, like, oh my God, did you get your project done 320 hours sooner? No, we did not. But we had 320 hours that we could start playing with. What have we gained from C4R? From our time that we've earned is that we can put that time back into our projects. Better clash detection, better QC, better ways we can coordinate our models with our consultants and contractors and so on. So like I said, do we gain time? Yes, but we put it back into our project. Never have we, I don't think, I can't say that we've ever finished a project early. We probably have, here and there or whatever, but we purposely don't want to finish early. We want to take the time that we're saving and put it back into your project. So how much time are we saving per week? Every user is probably saving on an average 3 to 5 hours a week. Doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when you have 190 users, you do the math, you can see how much time we are saving and how much time we can invest back into our projects. So that's kind of our history, that's kind of how we got here and how these stepping stones and learning of everything that we had to do, in order to get there. The biggest thing goes back to those 2 things that I spoke about early, is you have to learn how to communicate and you have to learn how to collaborate. Pounding of the keyboard in Revit does not change. You're still opening, you're still saving, you're still using hotkeys, you still use your commands, just like you do before you go to C4R. Just imagine C4R is a fancy server that's in another location, not inside your office. You're just opening and closing from a different location. But you get those live capabilities of working with your consultant. So I'm not having to wait for those email models back and forth to be sent. So now that we are where we are today, we built a lot. We've grown. We've learned everything from our little $11 million project. That project has now been done and it's built, and it's occupied. So what do we do internally? Internally we have our own intranet. That little squiggle is our logo. So it's kind of nice that our intranet is called Squiggle. So we joke around, instead of Googling it, we squiggle it, here in the office. So on our intranet, when a new project begins, every one of our users know these are some of the things that we want to take into consideration before you submit a request to post a project on the cloud. First thing is talk to your consultants. Make sure they are all on board. When we first went on board, not everybody wanted to play the game, and we had to really explain to them, sometimes with the school of hard knocks, so like, this is the path that we're going. You may want to join along. But at the same time, the cost was something that, a lot of people would really push back on us on. And I get it, and I understand it, and I get that it can be, can be very expensive at times depending on how you're doing it. But with what we, I sat down with each one of our consultants, whether it's on a BIM kickoff meeting, or I would drive to their offices and I would explain to them, look, just because you're hearing it from McMillan Pazdan Smith does not mean this is going to be your first time. If you're going to work with McMillan Pazdan Smith, get ready for C4R. But the good thing about it is if you purchase your license for my project, it's not good for just any project at McMillan Pazdan Smith. It's good for any architect that you're going to work with. So we may be the first person that told you about C4R. We may not be the last. So if you're a structural firm or a mechanical firm, and you're being driven by an architectural firm, or somebody else is trying to push you to C4R, you gain so much more out of it than what we do, because we only get to use it on our projects. That's it. If you are a structural person and you have to buy it from one architect, and all of a sudden you get flooded with 5 other architects or somebody else who wants it, you're all set. You're good to go. To purchase your licenses, what I recommend is your scope of your work. You know your workload. You know your people's capabilities. You figure out how many licenses that you need. I do not ever recommend, buy 10. That's the best thing to do. No, you guys figure out what works best for you. Remember, you need C4R for the people who pound the keyboard. You can manage, so through your Autodesk account, make sure that you have somebody who can manage this, somebody who can get in there and assign the license and so on. So this is all of our users, everybody has set up inside here and so on. And I can just come through here and I can pick on any one of our users, and let me go back to my people, and I'm just going to pick on Adam, and I can scroll down here, and you're going to see here's your collaboration for Revit, and you're just going to assign them, so it'll keep track of everything, that how many you have left and all of that for you. So you'll want to make sure you have access to your Autodesk account. That's how you assign your licenses. We recommend, what we have set up internally with our users is you must create an Autodesk account. We have a policy for that. When you're creating an Autodesk account and you're working on McMillan Pazdan Smith or working for McMillan Pazdan Smith, you need to create a username that we set as a standard. It's always our uppercase first name, lowercase last name @MPS. The reason is because there's a lot of things I can do behind the green curtain or whatever that I can see usernames, who's working on what project, what time they saved, and all of that. But if somebody's username is, Go Clemson Tigers, I have no idea who that is. So it could be one of many people that work for me because I have a lot of Clemson graduates. So we need to narrow that down. Passwords, we don't really care. So kind of going back, so when all of these things are set and ready, and these are the things that we want people to do, is, we want people to take into consideration. We also have on Squiggle a form that people fill out. They come in here, they fill out all the information that they need about posting a project up on the cloud. Once they fill this out, an email gets sent to me, and I come through here and I begin creating a project for them. This is our live site. You're looking at what we have posted on our projects. You can see that we have a lot of projects on the cloud. We put our logos in there. Every one of these projects have consultants, invited. You can see we do projects for national people. I could go on and on and on of everything, that we do. We use different color logos for different kinds of things, things that are private to some people, not everybody. Once a new project has come in, it's very easy to create a project. I'm just going to give it let's do something like this. we're just going to call it that. I'll assign my logo, whatever it is, and I'll create my project. So once my project is created, it's just boring. There's nothing exciting in there. Through the list of people who send me something, I will send them all invites and everything that's in here, so they can all be invited to that project. When a new project is created, we actually have a project folder template. This has everything that's inside here, all of our folder structures, standard guidelines, images, we want people to use, families we want them to use, and so on. And once I have that all set, I just simply pick on that, copy this, and I select my destination folder, and I can just copy this and this content all the way over here. And now it's copying all my folders, and now everybody is ready to go. So in the long run, that's kind of what we do. That's how we operate with C4R. Again, what are some of the biggest questions that we still hear is, do you have the right to work in, security of Revit models? We hear this all of the time of, well, people can access my model. Yes, they can, and we can access theirs, and so on. Like we explained to them, we're all big boys. Until Autodesk has a better system in place, we need to stay out of everybody's models. So we hear that a lot. Have we had people get into other people's models? Yes. Have we got into somebody else's? Yes. Have they got into ours? Yes. It has happened, but we push hard back. Just don't do it again. We kind of, we start locking things down pretty aggressively, and emails get sent out, and so on. I can honestly say in the 2.5 years that that's happened, we probably had that happen, less than a handful of times. Not sure where else we can go with this. Like I said, this is our journey. It does work for all of you. So the concepts in every firm are kind of the same. So no matter what we do, you guys are going to be kind of following the same suit anyway. Again, does it work? Yes, it works very, very well. I've sold, 190 of my users to use it, day in, day out. And they all love it. I mean, I have some teams that just, please, Glenn, do not ever take C4R away. And it's not. It's around for the long haul. Out of all of our offices, we have some offices that were probably still better than others of getting their project up there pretty quick. Our Charlotte, our Charleston, and Asheville offices, new project comes to the door, boom, they don't waste any time. New project gets created and all of that. Once that gets created, I actually send a boilerplate out email to welcome everybody to the BIM 360 site and so on. But that's kind of our journey. I want to thank Jesse for allowing me to share that. These conversations could continue on and on. I mean, we could talk about a lot more, get into details about everything else. But the biggest thing I think, if you want to take away out of it, is just don't be afraid of it. It does work for you, and it works beautifully. Test it. If you're worried about it, buy a license or two. You can buy a license for, a month just to get it worked out or whatever. And then once you see it figured out, then you can figure out what you want. The biggest thing, like you said, it goes back to those two things that I spoke about earlier, is you have to learn to communicate and you have to learn to collaborate, even with your own internal team. There are ways that you can do that inside Revit by using Communicator and so on. We still use the old-fashioned way of picking up the phone and calling them. The biggest benefits we're seeing out of it, like I said, we are saving tremendous amounts of time. But the ability, because we are so mobile, there's been many meetings that I'm sitting at with a client, and we're talking about changes and things like that. We're doing them live inside of our models while we're sitting there. We've saved tremendous amounts of times of having to go back and decipher other people's red lines and so on. Doesn't mean we've stopped that altogether. We've just been able to make changes quick and easy and on the fly. Jesse, Wendy, I'm kind of open for questions if anybody has any questions. So.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you, Glenn. And I love the point that, the software is only as good as is our communication and our collaboration. So I think that was hits home to just about everybody. So we are going to open it up. We've got a few minutes here to open up for questions. So if you want to insert those into the question box, we'll get those asked of Glenn. I do have one here so far. So Glenn,
Mhm.
first question is, can users who don't have access to Revit view the Revit models?
Yes. So not necessarily. I mean, so one of the things that you got to learn is when you are working. Hopefully, everybody can still see my screen. When you are working on a project that's out here, I can let me just pull. Let me pull up a project. I know it's way down here at the bottom here. Let me just pull this one up here. People have to remember, so when I'm working inside Revit, we have, there's basically two models you got to remember with. You have a design model that you're working with inside Revit, and you have a published model that you see here on the cloud. So I can go to Revit, and when I'm in Revit, I can go to my managed cloud models, I can publish, and the second I do that, it immediately takes a snapshot of that model and copies it over, and it pushes it here. What we recommend in our own internal office is people need to publish often. Publish. It's quick and easy. So we have some design teams that will publish 2 or 3 times a day, but we'll have other people who will publish at least once a week. And by doing that, so when I see that, so if I pick on something like, this kind of project here, depending on how you publish, and I'm not sure what we have here, but so here you can see that we have a model that we can other people can access and everything else who are not inside Revit. We can publish sheets, we can publish views, we can publish anything that we want. The good thing about it is you control what gets to be published. You can mark up on here, you can do all kinds of things. We don't have every project who marks up on here, but you do have the ability to have people, so we have contractors who will come here, other people. On one particular project, I had to work with an owner. He wanted to see progress every single day, so we published, and they were able to see everything that we worked on. So hopefully that kind of answers that question.
Yes,
yeah,
thank
that's
you very
great.
much.
And the other,
go ahead,
I'll add one thing. This is Jesse Thompson. Sorry to pop in here all of a sudden. Thank you, Glenn, by the way. That was fantastic presentation. We do have some clients that are actually, you can actually use Seat of BIM 360 team to view models, and it's a great tool for non-Revit users, to kind of explore the 3D environment. It's and it's cheaper. It's $125 per year, I believe, or just a single seat of that. So that's another way to do. So
yeah.
Okay, well, we'll still looking for questions. I'm going to go ahead and address this one. It's a question about the webinar being recorded, and yes, it is being recorded and will be made available later today. So it'll be posted on our website, but it will also be, the link will be included in that communication that comes from the GoToWebinar platform. And there'll be a link that you can share or review again yourself. The other thing that I want to remind everybody is how to get a hold of us. If something sparked your interest here in Glenn's story, which I can't imagine that it didn't, but you can reach out to us at info@theppigroup.com, or you can visit our website, theppigroup.com, and fill out a contact form, or just reply to the email that you're going to get in that communication, post-webinar communication. So we've got a couple questions coming in, several actually. Everybody's busy typing now. Okay, let's see. So Michael asks, can you tell a little bit about how electrical consultants use C4R?
Yeah, so we have quite a few electrical consultants who are using it. The good thing about it is that everybody still kind of works in their own model. At first, we had to explain to some people, because everybody thought we were working in one giant model. No, that doesn't exist. Electrical, you're still working electrical, mechanical, and so on, and architectural. One of the things that we really had to work on, even with our own internal users, is a lot of electrical, elements are wall hosted, ceiling hosted, things like that. So, every firm probably has super powerhouse Revit users all the way down to people who are still learning it. So people would come in and like, oh, hey, we need for you to move this wall over 6 inches, or can you readjust this ceiling? They would delete the ceiling out and redraw the ceiling over. And our electrical people and mechanical guys as well would become very furious with us because, now all my lights are gone, all of my mechanical ductwork or my grills and everything else are gone. And so the good thing about this is, electrical and mechanical, you still use Revit every single day. We just have to be better at not deleting. We need to move. Once we push something in Revit, it's kind of there to stay. If something is a major change, we do reach back out to our consultants. We'll tell a contractor or an electrical person, hey, we're going to have to delete this ceiling out. We're going to have to do a lot of reworking in this particular area. Just be aware, because you're going to have to probably put some lights, and things like that back in. But yeah, so we do work with them. A lot of them are working C4R with us.
Great. Next question. How do you get around clients who are against using cloud services? What is that?
Well,
what does that look like? Typically that comes up with, government and real high tech clients, right?
Yeah, so we have to really, so when we're going into a project, we understand what our consultants, or who our clients are. If we are working on a project where they just flat don't put anything, they don't want anything on the cloud, then we do kind of have to work the old-fashioned way. We have to figure out a system. We have to put a different team together, and so on. It has not happened hardly at all, because we do get to sell. We've worked with clients that maybe not necessarily high-tech or government quite jobs, but we do have some healthcare people that will say, I don't think so. Then once we sit down and we explain the benefits from how they can have access and they can see things, they're all gung-ho for it. I mean, we even have national clients who are, fast food chains they went to C4R because we are on C4R, and we do a lot of their work. You saw a couple of their names up there. There's a national food chain out of Atlanta that we work very heavily with. They were reluctant at first, but now they're very happy. If you do run into a government, kind of a client or somebody like that, it's best to try to work with them. Right now, if there is, we don't even have a great solution because of, because we can have everything, everybody can access other people's models. Now, hopefully down the road, Autodesk, have a way to prevent that, and maybe that will help them, have a lot more trust inside that system.
Great. Okay, a couple more questions here, and then we'll get ready to wrap up. James is asking the difference between BIM 360 and C4R. I think we'll take that one offline, James. What I'd like to do is have somebody here in our office contact you that's a little bit bigger discussion, and we have a little bit of insight into some new release information and things like that. So we'd really like to take that offline and have that discussion with you one-on-one. So
and just to pipe in here, we're actually not even allowed to talk about it right now. So there will be an announcement coming soon, but we're technically not allowed. But we'll reach out to you and get back to you on that.
Sure. The other question is, Eric asks if C4R is generic, meaning are there different year versions?
It's generic. It's still per version. So, just because I'm in, Revit 2017 and the consultant wants to be in 18, you still need to stay in the same version. You just got to remember, like I said, Revit still operates and thinks the same identical way, version to version, keystrokes, whatever, everything is still the same. So if I create and it's kind of the good thing about it too, is if I create a C4R project in 2018, if I'm in Revit 2017 and I browse to my BIM 360 projects, you can't even see it in 17. one of the good things that we do like about C4R too is, like I said, there's a lot of other tips and tricks I could kind of show you guys, but learn where your managed cloud model panel is inside Revit. You can do a lot of things inside there. You can roll back to older versions, and so on. You can relinquish. So, Jesse and I are working on a project together. He goes on vacation. He's on the ski slopes, in Park City, Utah, and I can't get a hold of him because he still owns elements inside walls, and I don't know his username and all of that stuff. You can go to manage your cloud models, go right in there, and you can relinquish, you can just checkbox him right out of there, and it'll release him out of there. So again, Revit still works the same. It's version to version and so on. But the good thing about it now is one of the other things I do want to touch base on that's really, really important when it comes to the technical side is that make sure that you are on the latest and greatest version of Revit. So just because we're in Revit 2017, there's Revit 2017.2.3. You want to make sure that everybody is on the latest build. It gives you all the new stuff for C4R, BIM 360, and all of that. If you are not, you can crash models, corrupt models, and it can be a real big problem. So just because if the architect is up to date and the structural people are not, you can still clash or crash models back and forth and corrupt them that way. So even though they're on 17, I'm on 17.2.2.3, it just technically means my Revit is just a little bit smarter than yours. So make sure that you are on the latest and greatest build every single time. Make sure you have somebody who is pushing those updates to every single one of your users internally, whether on C4R or not.
Great. Okay, one last question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find investing in C4R has helped your firm win more business over competitors?
Oh, yes. So, that is one of the things that we feel we have really gained probably the most out of it is, when we're going into an interview or we're going after a project, everybody can kind of come in and go, well, I can do this in Revit and I can provide all these pretty renderings, and all of these things and so on. We can go in there and go, I can provide you all of these pretty renderings and I can provide you Revit, and we're in the BIM world, but we are on the cloud. We can let you have access to the same project at times if you want to. We can speed up our projects, and we're not finishing our projects sooner, but we can devote more time back to your projects because, again, we gained 300 project on a previous job that's very similar to your project. We gained 300 hours. We didn't finish 300 hours sooner, but we were able to put 300 hours back into your project so you have a better design, a better, better QC and all of that. And yes, we have won work because we are on the cloud. Again, we signed on with a national food, everybody knows this person. We signed on with a national food group because we were on C4R. They gave us all of their projects and so on because of that. So.
Nice. Great story. Great
Interesting
testimony there for sure. Okay, so just to reiterate, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. I promised we would end things at the top of the hour to be respectful of everybody's time. Those attending the webinar and Glenn himself, very busy guy. So to contact us about any of the information that's been provided, or if you want to have a demo or learn more, please reach out to us, info@theppigroup.com. And again, that follow-up email will come out later this afternoon, and it'll have the link to the recorded webinar so that you can share that with colleagues who might have interest. Glenn, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're a busy guy and your time is valuable, and I've found everything you said very interesting, and I'm sure the other attendees did as well. And Jesse, any last thoughts?
No, I just want to thank Glenn. It was really a great presentation, and we really appreciate your time, and looking forward to maybe doing another one again soon.
Awesome. Anybody can also reach out to me as well. I mean, I really encourage you guys to turn to Jesse and PPI, especially for the technical kind of things, and all that. But feel free. I mean, if you guys, I'm on LinkedIn. You guys can reach out to me if needed, just for, tips and tricks. I even travel to our consultant's office. We have a structural person who is struggling. I'll get in my company car and I head there to make sure that they are on the right page at the same time, with us as well, because sometimes our providers are busy just like we are. But if I can get to them, and it helps. So feel free to reach out to me as well. So.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to wrap things up, and thank you for attending. We hope to see you on our next webinar. Jesse and Glenn, have a wonderful day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.